coaches, we hear a lot about one-to-one. Like, how do you communicate one-to-one with an athlete, particularly in practice, but do it in a way that doesn't sacrifice reps for that athlete? So they're still getting the reps that you might want them to have on the practice court or the field. How do you effectively intervene in a way that enables them to take ownership of what they're doing? Like, it's much easier said than done. You can talk about being need-centered and athlete-centered and having great one-to-one communication with athletes. But if you take an athlete off to the side and you talk to them for 5 minutes straight, then that's 5 minutes they're not practicing your sports. It's really hard to do. So I asked Mark to dig into an example for us from a recent experience he had working with coaches. And so we're going to go into much more detail for you, like exactly how do you do those one-to-ones in a way that doesn't sacrifice other parts of your practice. It's episode 6. Thanks for staying with us. It's the Don't Tell Me, Show Me podcast.
So this was the annual conference for the British American Football Federation. It was John Wise that invited me over, which you may have known, Simon. I know Alan does from his basketball days. So he saw the correlation, again, another sport, but a team sport. So I did an hour delivery in the morning, traditional keynote. And then in the afternoon, had an hour where I just asked them, come up, write some questions on the board, and we can have an interaction. And this was one of the questions we didn't get to, because there were so many of them. But where the real concern was that American football is obviously, if you don't know anybody, and I don't know it well, but you have a set of players that come on for defense and a set of players that come on for attack. And there's a lot of focus on getting real time of getting repetitions in to a certain tactic, a certain play. So when I introduced this, they liked the idea, many coaches, but there was a concern and questions about, well, would this interfere with my amount of repetitions I'm getting within a practice session? And how would it fit? How would it work within pulling players out on one-to-ones? Was the concern, inquisitiveness, questions on that?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because sometimes when we take on a new aspect of our coaching, a new behavior as a coach, it clashes with some of our previous ideas. Or what do we have to let go to enable us to then take on this new behavior or this new value or belief about coaching? And you're right, it can be tempting to consider those kind of one-to-ones as an interruption to your practice. So and in American football, it's quite drill based, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And it's that point about, I always ask, and it was when I first met Alan all those years ago, is what is success for the session? And where the challenge always lies is that success has to be more than competing amount of repetitions in a certain play, if that's success, whether it's defense or attack. So where the challenge always is, if you have a whole team, and remember the capability combination, they really love that, by the way, when we shared that, is that point of you've got a set of players that will play in a match. Now, you might rotate one or two, but American football seems to be, right, these are the set of players that come on. So if I pull one out, they're not getting a repetition in with the others. Now, that may be, well, obviously what we want to do is rotate if we've got that opportunity of putting another player in. But remember, what is success? So success is to seek the interdependency of understanding with your teammates, to know when to go, what adaptation to make within that play. And there's very much that communication teamwork's huge in those type sports. Basketball's the same, soccer, rugby, all these sports, especially in that defense play. So if I'm seeing there's an issue, and going back to that ARP sum we spoke about in previous episodes about identifying the source of an issue and also a source of how great that was in the past, but also different. But if I'm seeing a source with a player, I've spotted it. And if I don't do an intervention now, actually that's going to hinder the quality of the repetition based on what's success for this process. So if I haven't got a one-to-one as an option, my only other option is to stop play or to attempt in a gap to shout the answer. But we know already, we've discussed, the problem with shouting an answer is you may see the player then make that change, especially if it's unopposed repetition, and that's a whole conversation about the pros and cons of that. Yeah. Obviously many cons, but I may see it, but all I'm seeing is a player is now doing what I've just told him or her in short-term memory. I still don't know Do they understand why they did that in the first place, the previous? And do you understand why you've made the adaptation? And do you know when to make it when you've got an opposition? Because there's always an adaptation when you're in defending or attacking. So I won't know those. So this is the challenge of what is the purpose and success for a session? Remember, need-centered is not about one session. It's about what influence can I have now that I may see a ripple, an impact in 2-3 sessions. Is what can I do now that's going to enhance that player's understanding, scanning, decision-making, commitment to a choice, or the actual technical element that will allow them to perform better in future sessions linked to, importantly, the match. So this is where what is success of the session, and why would I do a one-to-one once I identify the source, as opposed to letting it go or stopping play.
Well, that's the rule of 3 in action there, isn't it? So
it is, yeah, which we haven't really mentioned.
No, we're contractually obliged to mention the rule of 3 every episode. If the athlete can fix this mistake or this technical body position or whatever it is, then we need to give them a chance to do that. Do they know they made a mistake, first of all? And that you can achieve that through just body language or a quick check, even a head tilt sometimes. Do you think you did that right? No, coach, I got it. Okay, boom. There's a one-to-one intervention that took 3 seconds, and that's not decreasing the reps. So first of all, obviously, you got to figure out by observation and questioning, does the athlete know that they could do that action, that movement a little bit better? Secondly, I guess, can they interact with a teammate at the back of the line? Are their teammates watching each other as well? But so this one-to-one with the coach only happens at stage 3 of the rule of 3, and then it doesn't have to be pulling somebody aside for 5 minutes. And that it really tests you. Like when I've done micro comms, yeah. I mean, it tests me. Like I really think about an economy of words when I'm coaching. Maybe not when I'm doing a podcast, but when I'm coaching, economy of words is important to me. How can I be really effective? Like I'm not top and tailing my question. Like how can I get my question across clearly in the least number of words that enables them to give me a clear answer back so that they can get back to the action?
Now, there's so much to unpick there.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know, we may do a whole session on this, potentially when Alan's back so we can contextualize it. The rule of 3 is, in essence, rule of 1 is you at self being excellence. So you at self, understanding what's around you, managing your state, making the right choice based on the situation, committing to it live, 100%, reviewing choice, execution, and commitment, adapting. And also then rule of 2 is making sure it's a team adaptation. We're communicating that effectively. If I'm seeing someone struggling, but they're making the right choice, do I celebrate having an effective impact? If I'm seeing someone struggling, how can I have an effective impact? If I see someone making a wrong choice for execution and they think it's great, how can I have an effective impact? Rule of 3 then is coach steps in. So the aim is 1 is nailing it, 2 is being effective. I don't need to step in. But here's the challenge, and it's my common challenge, Simon. We've been speaking these episodes so far and other conversations about if coach-led is I'm shouting the answer to a player in any sport, I don't know if I'm just seeing a pawn just on a chess set, just doing what I'm telling them to do. I still don't know their understanding. I still don't know why. So under pressure in a match, I still don't know they're going to make the right decision. And often they don't, where coaches play their heads out. I've seen them do it 100 times. I've told them 100 times. Why aren't they doing this? Well, you've told them they're not thinking. They've got to think live. You're out of date waiting for your voice. So here's the challenge for me. When we're talking about other players, we've got to develop players that don't, in the phase of when we're in a learning practice session, not in a live pressure, fast speed match. In that, we don't want the player to be a coach-led player, a player-led. What I mean by that is if a player is just saying to another player, oh, you did that wrong, then that's not helpful anyway. It's not solution-based. But also in that moment, even if they tell them a solution, that's just like the coach shouting the solution from the sideline. So we've got to get players to understand, look, if you want to help that player, you've got to know and get them to quantify their choice execution. So that's where, okay, talk to me. It might be talk to me choice. So that may be Stevie stood behind Danny seen Danny, and Danny hasn't at one gone, next time I'm going to do this. So then Stevie can go, love that. Right, let's see. Show me. Great, you've got it. That's given me confidence in the teammates. If I'm not seeing that, I'll say, Stevie, choice. So Stevie then says, yeah, I was happy, or no, I should have done this one. Not what the problem is, what the solution is. Okay, let's look next time. So there's the subtlety of it. It would be very easy for a coach to shout the answer. We know the issues with that, based on impacting player under pressure without me being able to get to them. But a player, a teammate, could be the same issue if they're just sharing answers or problems with the player. We're not evolving their understanding of the game. So it's so important that when we're developing this and we'll go after this, Simon, of the variables of one-to-one interventions, is we want to get the player to be able to understand the adaptation or understand they're doing it well, but also share with their teammates so their teammates know, I know that player's got it. Otherwise, the teammates might be thinking, oh, they're getting it wrong. Now I've got to cover that gap as well if I'm defense. Now I'm not covering my gap. So now we get this negative chain through the whole defense. So I've got to know. So if I'm sharing my teammates, yeah, next time I'm doing this, I need to go a bit earlier, tight, whatever it was. Now the teammate's going, you're right, you're getting it. That's giving me confidence, but we've got to look for the change. So if I'm a teammate, what I don't want to do is give them the answer. Now, if we're in a match at 100 miles an hour and there's a split second and we've got to go again, of course it's appropriate in that moment to give them the answer because we need to in that moment. But I, as a player, need to be connecting in, right? When we get to practice, I need to make sure you understand that so you're not relying on me to tell you next time. So that light and shade is so important. The athlete-centered, need-centered of each player understanding how can I help my teammate, and sometimes giving them the answer is not helping them grow beyond that moment.
Yeah, I've fallen into that trap before where I think I'm empowering players, but what I'm really doing is empowering a couple of the extroverts or the veterans to just say whatever they want to people. And they may as well just be coaches. If a coach said what they said and took the amount of time they said to say it, I'll be like, oh, that's not the kind of coaching I wanted. If my assistant coach said that, they wouldn't. I'd intervene. Something I'd have to change something. But it's okay if the player says it. So yeah, being athlete centered or empowering players, etc. Being a players coach, that's all easy to say. Much harder to do. You've actually got to teach or coach the players on how to interact with each other. And this is where not to get too philosophical for a moment, but this is how we can help to develop really good coaches, because a lot of coaches transition from playing into coaching and they will initially replicate their experiences they had as a player. So you can develop coaches inside your team, particularly if you're in a club system with different age groups, in that kind of way, by empowering these players first. But I want to come back to like the nitty gritty of, you're in the middle of practice, there's a drill going on, you need them to get reps for what, or you've decided, right or wrongly, coach decided, I want them to get reps. Player's not done that terribly effectively. You're not seeing any self-awareness from them. They got it wrong. They're not getting any interaction from their teammates, etc. So they get to the back of the line, and you've got between 20 and 60 seconds before they go back in. What do you do in that exact moment?
Well, let's step back for some options you could do straight away. So one of the things that we can do is get players, especially if they're doing that type repetition, and hopefully there will be repetition without repetition. Once they've done their completion, they just shout yes or no based on choice execution. So that's quite an easy way for you to start scanning their teammates saying it was a yes or a no based on what we're agreeing the focus is in the choice execution. So if it's a no, they say, right, next time. Now they could start doing that live. What we're scanning for, and a bit of the wiser teammates we know we can trust them to scan for, is, are they outcome led or are they honest to the choice execution? Meaning, if it's a successful outcome, they'll say yes. And if it's not a successful outcome, they'll say no. But actually, we know there's too many variables for that to be the one I'm looking for. So we pick up on that. If then we're seeing some no's without solutions, we've got our teammates can look at it. If it gets back to the point now, I need to intervene with as a coach, I might have a pre-agreement that they've already got work-ons, which we should all develop with every player. If it's nothing to do with their work-on, I can, from one, just shout their name and say, choice execution, talk to me next time. and see if they can tell me. If they can't then tell me, then that's that window of, right, I've got to have a catch up now of, okay, talk to me, and using the ARP, what options did you identify? So then they're sharing with me their understanding of the options, or what did you see? One of those questions, or if you did it again, what would you do differently? So all we're doing is we're priming a question that we think is relevant to that situation without going through the whole ARP. So even in the
Sorry, Mark, you've mentioned ARP now, I think 3 times now, but
yes, because we've done it on a different episode.
Well, but not everyone's listening to every episode, so you
why
might have
not,
to take...
Simon? Why aren't they listening?
Well, I am. I mean, I'm watching them all 5 times.
So ARP,
yep,
action review process. It provides everyone an understanding of the decision-making process that you go through at self before making a decision. Whether you're an accountant, an athlete, makes no difference. So basics of state, then scanning, that's the data capture, identifying the options from what you've seen from the data, and then identifying the influencers, and the influencers will impact the choice you make. So that will be conditional, capability of you, capability of your teammates, capability of the opposition, where the space is, situation, etc. So you're saying, right, I'm seeing these options, but actually this is why I'm going to choose that one. This is a why. This is why influencing the choice. And that allows you more confidence to commit. So we talk about this of, we need athletes to be doing this off ball, not just when they get into the action, or even in defense, before you're in that play of that split second. I'm doing this all the time. I'm relaxed, but I'm making sure I'm ready. So then when it comes to the action, I've already done some data capturing. I've already done some decision making to allow me in the moment to make a better choice. So that is a framework we're using as coaches as well. If I'm spotting and I'm thinking, I'm not sure why they came to that choice, and I've shouted their name and they've given me an odd answer, so then I can bring them in an intervention, and I either cherry pick one of those questions or I go through the whole thing. Talk to me what happened over there. So what did you see? They share with me. What options did you identify? They share with me. What influenced your choice? They share with me. Did you commit? I'm checking based on my judgment, agree or not. The principle, if we don't commit, we don't review. Right, next time, what's preventing you from committing should be the question. If the commitment's fine, then I'm asking, would you change anything? So this is that point we spoke about before, Simon. Initially, when coaches use this, every single player will be thinking, I must have done something wrong because the coach is asking me these questions. Coach only asked me a question if I've done something wrong. So we've got to get beyond that to say, no, coach wants to understand my understanding of what just happened. So if I believe it was the right choice and execution, I need to say to coach, wouldn't change a thing. It was the right, even if it didn't come off, it was the right thing to do. And I needed that confidence in me, which is what the coach should be building. So under match conditions, players are confident at making a choice and backing themselves in that choice. But we want to build to make sure they're making good choices based on the situation, the environment, and the teammates. And that's where the ARP can be a really good tool of, one, helping players make decisions, but also spotting where the source of a breakdown is, and then an intervention of support in that specific area of the decision-making process.
For some reason, you've reminded me of my 13-year-old daughter. She's not a basketballer, sadly. Older one is, but younger one's got her own things going on. And her neurology just means sometimes there's feast or famine with her communication. So sometimes she just turns it on and can't stop. That's usually 11 o'clock at night. Other times struggles to communicate. And so we've got this little system where I might ask her a question, quite a simple question, and she gives me thumbs down, thumbs up, or thumbs sideways. And that's what I thought when you said yes, no, that actually triggered that, because that's something you could use on a pitch in American football, way over there. Something just happened, your quarterback or something like that. Maybe if you're at an amateur level, you're not mic'd up, and your quarterback's just giving you that on that decision, and that's the acknowledgement. If you get thumbs up, then obviously you're fine. If it's thumbs down, then they know they could have made a different decision, and they're showing some self-awareness about that. If it's in the middle, well, I'm not sure, and maybe I could, at that point, I intervene. So these kind of little cues can really speed up our communication.
Yeah, and don't forget, when we build in that rule of 2 at peers, we're upskilling the peers to have an effective influence around. So when someone says a yes, no, or not sure, whatever you've pre-agreed, and how are you going to communicate it, It's the players around them that can back them or challenge them within their response. So if they're not sure, okay, how can I help with that? Whereas they're not sure, in that moment, just those teammates around them that you give them permission, that you know have the knowledge and understanding to have an effective, meaningful conversation. Not the player that talks a lot and is incorrect most of the time, because we need to upskill them. So if then it's a no, what we want to make sure, as I mentioned before, is it's not outcome led. So am I saying no just because it didn't come off? Well, hang on, that's a lack of understanding in how we play a game. Look at a basketball defender, netball defender. How many, if we, the best in the world, are they 100% in defense at stopping every basket? No, no one is. Mm-hmm. So we've got to set expectations of, but did I make the right choice and execute it? 100%? Yes. Did they get past me? Yes. Slowed them down a little bit, tired them out a little bit, but actually it was the right choice and execution to make. So that's important. So if I'm getting a thumb up, I've got to make sure I'm agreeing or not. If I'm getting a not sure, okay, where? If I'm getting a thumb down, I've got to make sure I'm agreeing or not. And then always solution. So if it's a thumb down, okay, what's next time then? If it's a thumb down, what are you going to change? So I'm solution based. If they then don't know, that's when we want our teammates to intervene to help. Then it's us from the sideline going, right, teammates are struggling. Okay, I'm choosing to have I've let it go a couple of times. I can't, there's some grey in there. I need an intervention. They're right on the other side of the field. I'm going to rotate someone in. I'm going to pull them over. And I can run around the pitch to get as close as I could to them or court. And then I'm going to do one of those little interventions. So talk to me what happened over there. And then I go through that ARP questioning framework to get to the source of where the struggle is or where they're incorrect. Then I can put a quick intervention in. And I always finish with that player last, meaning the owner that's going to go away and do it always finishes last. So if we have an agreement, I say, so what are you going to commit to? They tell me, and then I'm looking for the scan. Are they going to do it? What have we agreed? They're telling me. I'm looking for the scan of them doing it, as opposed to me, I'm getting an answer from them, and then me having to add another 3-4 things on top, which is then desensitizing the very thing, especially if you're under stress. It's like, I don't know if you watch the boxing or MMA, in the corner, they've just been battered, and then you got a coach in front of them sharing 3 or 4 or 5 things, and they're shell shocked, just nodding. And then you get a sponge guy sharing something else, and within a minute, 2 minutes, they've had 10, 15 things thrown at them. They're like, oh, they go out, don't apply any of it, because we're not getting them engaged, getting them back. What's the source? What are you seeing? Okay, what are you going to change? Now I intervene, right? What's doing? That guy's dropping his arm. He's dropping that left arm, and he's doing a dummy on you. So now you know what you're going to do. Okay. And then whatever the conversation is, right, just remind me, what are you going to be aware of now? What are you going to commit to? And that athlete tells me, great, show me. It's done. It's the one. I mean, you know better than me, Simon, how many digits of information can any athlete take in and apply? It's minimal, right? 1 to 2 for most people. For the geniuses, maybe 3. But us as coaches need to be mindful that when we're sharing the data.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've raised a great point around process versus outcome, because if the coaches seem to be outcome focused, then that's going to just give permission to all the players to do the same. I'm really conscious, particularly in games, of like when I acknowledge people, like when I clap. I try to make it always process. So in basketball, if we've done the right thing on offense, we're shooting the ball, I'll try to clap when the ball's in the air, because then it's independent of the outcome, and also my clap or my voice is heard at that point, because nobody else has applauded yet or said anything. So it's much more likely that people are going to take notice, because it's unusual actually to see somebody clapping or acknowledging before the outcome has actually occurred. So there are ways of orientating players and athletes around that process.
That's important, Simon. Of that, remember that statement: performance is a behavior, not an outcome. We need every coach and every athlete to go, look, we all want to win, we all want outcomes, but what are the facilitators that will provide us the most success towards the outcome? That may be, and I'll just check some simple ones out. I get back first, so I get back in position first. I always sprint down a 50-50 ball. I am not wasting energy reacting to a referee call if the reaction isn't not proactively getting back in position. So those are things we can celebrate every single time we see an athlete doing that. if we're looking for that change. So now we're saying, I'm spotting the very elements. If every athlete does this, it's going to increase our success. So let's spend energy celebrating and recognizing when that's happening, great. And when it's not, let's recognize, hey, Danny, talk to me back there. I'm going to sprint harder next time because I'm solution-based. Great, show me. Next time you see Danny sprinting back, Danny, yes, much better. You've got this. Nothing to do with the scoreline. But we know these are meaningful, impactful behaviors that impact performance that can give us the best chance of results. And that's something coaches, need to explicitly know and scan for, but we need our athletes to be looking at as well. So American football in defense, the timing of that guy just exploding, hips down, driving to that person, and they're a better player functionally, physically, bigger, stronger. And he's done that 8 times now, but he's doing it again the 9th time because he knows that's the best I can do. That's me giving up for the team. We need someone to celebrate that. That person is going for it, irrelevant of whether they block the person or not. Doesn't matter. They are doing the best they can. That is their job. Are they doing their job well? Yes. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, we've got about 5 minutes left here, Mark, and you started to orientate us here towards mindset. And I think that might be an interesting way to finish this, because all of these things that we're describing here, these are all behaviors of the coach, but those behaviors are on a bedrock of what they find to be important, maybe their values, maybe their principles, philosophy, whatever language you want to use. Like in Alan's case, it's about care for those athletes. So that's that foundation. If you've got that foundation of being needs-based, needs-centered as well, that can really help. So that really helped me. The needs-based approach, or just that language, that reframing, really helped me to do less. Because what I recognized in time was that sometimes I was asking great questions of an athlete who just did something really well and actually didn't need me to intervene. And also, if I'd just given them a little thumbs up or a fist bump to acknowledge that I know that you just did something really well, now I'm actually connecting with that athlete quite well. And that's just a micro intervention, because I found myself in the past, on reflection, probably biasing my time towards athletes who I thought were more receptive to my coaching or more receptive to communication, when actually the ones who need it the most were probably the ones that were putting up barriers because they were self-conscious about having made a mistake. They're actually it's the opposite of what I should have been doing. I should have been intervening with those kind of athletes first. So it's that kind of, I guess, my state as a coach, but also that bedrock of my philosophy that has to underpin all these behaviors, surely.
Well, you think about it, everyone needs to explicitly understand the why. So I call it a lighthouse. Why we train, what type of team do we want to be, what's it look, sound, and feel like. But then in each element, when I'm going to introduce a new behavior and how I coach, or something we're really going to focus on as a team, that could be getting early for the warm-up, getting our heads right to sprint past the line, not decelerate. Could be anything, but we're saying, for us to become this, let's agree why we need to challenge ourselves to be every time on this, and set UAEs, that unacceptable, acceptable, and exceptional, based on what that looks like, and the permissions of, if we're saying this is critically important for us to get to our lighthouse, what's my role in that as a coach? What's your role in that as an athlete? One, when we do exceptionally well, what we're going to do, but also when we're acceptable, what are we going to do about that? And then I need to honor it. I need to be saying to me, I'm getting caught up in the outcome again. I'm getting caught up in communicating my favorite 5-6 players that always give me the right answer. No. What is my need now as a coach to allow that athlete to grow? Not in this session, but in the 3-4 months coming up, or this week, to help impact them for the next match, right? That's where my energy needs to go. But it can't be grey. It can't be invisible. It needs to be shared with everyone involved, and then you need to honor it. So that's that mindfulness, Simon, of, even if it's on your session plan, software, hardware. Okay, so we got that for the team, but what's my work on? Software work on. Okay, I'm going to remind myself, even write it on hand, check. How am I doing? Not at the end of the session, during the session. How am I doing? Bang. And that's where we can give assistant coaches, parents, whoever it is, can you keep an eye on me in this? This is something I want to get better at. If you don't see me doing this, please say this. So it's the point of, in the moment, am I still honoring my part? But is everyone aware of the why to why I need to do this and why you need to do that, and how we're going to work together in celebration and challenge each other to be successful in the moment, that will have our ripple in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, and for the rest of our lives as human beings.
Yeah, I mean, you've paraphrased our movement model there. Alan and I spent hundreds and hundreds of hours talking about it just so we could reduce it down to 4 words, which is what and how serve who and why. And as you said there, that lighthouse, if we're needs-based, so that's understanding who we're coach, and we understand why we're coaching, so we've got an agreed lighthouse, then we can get on to the tech tack of what we're coaching, the hardware, etc. Then we can get on to our coaching methodologies and all of that. But if we don't have those first 2 pillars in place, we don't understand the needs of who we're coaching, and we don't understand why we're coaching or have that shared purpose, that shared goal, then the rest of it becomes really hard to figure out. And it's no wonder as a coach, especially a young coach, you chop and change all the time, especially tactically. It's because you're trying to put what and how before who and why instead of the other way around.
Yeah, and often the source of the barriers are often consistently the same. Irrelevant whether you change technical and tactical, the sources are generally the same. It's not the problem. So can we spot where the problem is? It's inhibiting our behaviors that will impact our performance at self and in others, and how effective we are at identifying the solution, then investing in the solution, and importantly, sharing the solution with everyone with the permission, the what ifs that we spoke about on future episodes. Otherwise, it's just talks. I know some top speakers that some of them live what they say. I've heard some that and people are saying, you don't do that. So it's great about talking about it, but in the moment, on those tough days, are we still living our part? And are the people that are supporting us, are we making sure they actually support us and we don't push them away? Because that's where we ignite the change in the present moment.
Well, Mark, let's leave it there. For the listeners that were waiting on a podcast with Alan Keane, we're still hoping to bring you that. It was his day off today and we had it all teed up, but as is the norm with tournaments, the schedule changed at the last minute, so his window for recording just collapsed. But he's got another couple of days lined up, so yeah, we're still really hopeful to bring that to you, to the listeners, hopefully next week. This is going out this afternoon, and Alan is 2-2 in group play and has a quarterfinal against, I think, Ireland. So that'll be fun. That'll be fun for him. Yeah. So thanks everybody for listening, and also Mark, we're making some good progress with the master classes, with the logistics of that. So we'll be able to announce that, I think, really quite soon. So we're looking at Sheffield in September and Edinburgh in January.
Yes, just waiting for confirmation on those elements, and then we can share the details.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks to everybody for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you. See you soon.